Water damage. It's a phrase that can make any property owner's heart just sink. But what if we could pull back the curtain on it? In this explainer, we're going to break down the entire process, turning a really complex and, let's face it, stressful event into an understandable, manageable science. So let's get right into it.
Here's the game plan. We'll kick things off by uncovering the hidden nature of water damage. Then, we'll look at how your location and climate can team up to create some pretty unique risks. After that, we're going to dive into the actual science of professional restoration. And to wrap it all up, we'll walk you through the exact three-phase plan that pros use to bring a property back from the brink.
All right, let's jump into the biggest misconception about water damage. The idea that it's always some big, dramatic flood. Honestly, the real enemy is often completely invisible, working silently behind your walls and right under your floors.
So let me ask you, what do you think is the most destructive force in your home? It's probably not what you're thinking. While you hear all about fires and storms on the news, that quiet, persistent creep of moisture can cause just as much, if not more, long-term damage.
The clues are almost never as obvious as a giant puddle in the middle of your living room. Instead, you might just notice a baseboard that looks a little puffy, or maybe a musty smell you can't quite track down, or a wood floor that's starting to buckle just a bit. These are literally the distress signals your house is sending you when there's a hidden moisture problem.
And that is why those small signs matter so much. See, unlike other problems you can kind of put off, water damage gets exponentially worse with time. Every single minute that goes by lets that moisture seep deeper and deeper, starting a whole chain reaction of decay and mold.
Okay, so now let's look at how a home's environment can create what is basically a perfect storm for water damage. We're going to use a specific place, Federal Way, Washington, as a case study to see exactly how all these different factors can pile up to create a massive risk.
First, you've got this constant pressure from the outside. In a high-risk area like the Puget Sound, you can see up to 38 inches of rain every year. That's just a relentless, non-stop test on every roof, every window seal, every single inch of a home's foundation.
And here's the real kicker. When the humidity in the air rarely ever drops below 70%, the air itself is already loaded with moisture. What that means is, once water gets inside your house, it literally has nowhere to go. It can't just evaporate. It just sits there, creating the perfect, stagnant, damp incubator for mold to just explode.
And this timeline, this shows you just how fast things can go south. Within the first day, stuff like drywall and insulation are completely soaked through. But the real deadline, the point of no return, is 48 hours. In a damp climate, that's all it takes for mold spores, which, by the way, are always in the air, to wake up and start to colonize.
So you see, it's almost never just one thing. It's the combination of all these factors. The constant rain, soil that holds water instead of letting it drain, and older homes that were built before we had modern moisture barriers. You put it all together, and you've got a very specific and very high risk profile.
Okay, so we definitely understand the problem now. Let's talk about the solution. And I want to be clear, it's not just about cleaning up. It's about applied science. Professional restoration is a highly technical process that's designed to fight the physics of moisture itself.
I mean, the difference between trying to do it yourself and calling in a pro is just night and day. A DIY approach, with shop vacs and towels, it gets rid of the water you can see. But a professional approach targets the water you can't see. They use powerful truck-mounted extractors to literally pull moisture from deep inside materials. And instead of just guessing, they use thermal cameras to map out the damage and then verify with scientific tools when it's truly gone.
Now, this is absolutely critical to understand. Not all water is the same. The industry sorts water into 3 categories. Category 1 is clean water, say from a broken supply line. Category 2 is what we call gray water. Think a washing machine overflow. It's got some contaminants. And then there's Category 3, black water, which is just grossly contaminated, like sewage. Each one requires a totally different safety protocol.
Okay, here's a $50 word for you. Psychrometry. I know it sounds complicated, but the concept is actually pretty powerful. It's the science of controlling the air, the temperature, the humidity, the airflow, to literally force water out of building materials. You're creating an environment where the structure has no choice but to release its moisture, which then gets captured by all the equipment. So, this all leads to a super important point. Looks dry is nowhere near good enough. The real goal is to meet an official industry benchmark called the dry standard. This is a measurable state. You confirm it with moisture meters, and it proves the material is back to normal. It basically shuts the door on any future mold growth. And this whole scientific process, it's not chaotic. It's organized into a really clear, predictable three-phase recovery plan. This is the roadmap that takes you all the way from disaster to full restoration, and it makes sure no steps get missed.
It's a really logical flow. Think of it like you're an ER doctor for a house. First, you stop the bleeding. That's the emergency extraction. Second, you stabilize the patient by removing all that hidden moisture. That's structural drying. And third, you do the reconstructive surgery, the rebuilding, to get the property back to exactly how it was before.
So in phase 1, it is all about speed. The team gets there, and they are immediately pulling out all the standing water. At the same time, they're using all that tech to map out exactly where the water went, behind the walls, under the floors, and this is key. Every single step is being photographed and documented to build a rock-solid insurance claim.
Now in phase 2, the focus totally shifts from removing water to evaporating moisture. This is where that psychrometry science really comes into play. They set up all these air movers and dehumidifiers to create a vortex of dry air. Then technicians come back every single day, not to guess, but to take instrument readings until they can prove that the dry standard has been met. This usually takes about 3 to 7 days.
And only when the structure is verifiably scientifically dry can the rebuilding actually start. This is where things finally begin to look normal again. Damaged stuff gets replaced, everything is repaired and painted, and they might apply antimicrobial treatments just as a final defense. It all wraps up with a final walkthrough with the homeowner to make sure everything's perfect.
And here's the big payoff for being so rigorous. All of that data they collected, the photos, the daily moisture logs, it isn't just for them. It all gets entered into industry-standard software that insurance adjusters know and trust. You're basically speaking their language with hard data, and that just leads to faster approvals and way fewer headaches for you.
This really sums up the whole philosophy. Professional restoration isn't a race. It's a commitment to a scientific result. The job is done when the meters say it's done, period. Because rushing the process and leaving behind even a little hidden moisture is just a guarantee you're going to have huge problems down the road.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. After a water incident, is your property just dry to the touch, or is it scientifically dry? Because understanding that difference, that's the single most important tool you have to protect your home, your health, and your peace of mind.